Oh, thanks. Q&A, anybody else? Please, go for it.
This one is probably mainly for Brother Thomas. It's about Cleophas Williams' book. I think everybody should buy and read. In my opinion, the most important chapter, to me at least, of this book is the chapter 2, A Longshore Worker's Story. And the part that gives me chills down my spine every time I read it is pages 56 through 61, where it talks about the period from 1946 through 1949, right after World War II, and how close all of this history you just talked about came to not happening. Because there was a movement of right-wing white supremacists in Local 10 of the ILWU that was organizing to deregister. They put a motion on the floor to deregister the 800 least seniority members of the local, mainly because most of those members were black. And they almost won. They almost won. They were barely defeated. And that story is in here. And I heard it verbally from Cleophas himself one time, and I heard it from Captain Josh Williams, now cast of your drill team as well. And it's a chilling story, because that was the context in which Harry Bridges had to say, if there was, in my opinion, if two workers were to be left, one would be black. He didn't say that back in the 30s. He said he had to say that as part of the effort to defeat that motion. And even with Bridges himself organizing to defeat that motion, they barely defeated it. And I just wondered if you could speak to that at all.
Yeah. That's a very important point. Yeah, I think it's one of the things that was critical was during World War II, the war years, that blacks got hired in significant numbers. And when that happened, the tonnage went up. You had longshore workers who had worked in the ILA in the Gulf. Some had worked in the military, and they brought a bigger to the waterfront in terms of how they worked. But to the point that Leith is making, I think it's important for me to say this. That vote that he's referring to, at first they wanted to have a referendum vote on the matter of laying off the black brothers, so that the brothers who would come back from the war, right, work was getting very thin. It was decided that it wouldn't be a referendum vote, that you had to stand up and vote to deregister the person or lay off the person standing next to you. That was a very critical action. That's a matter of democracy in the ILWU. I'm glad that Lee brought this up, because one of the things that really struck me about Cleophas's book, this is Cleophas's manuscript that his widow gave me the permission to publish. He says it's the greatest thing next to my family, being a member of the ILWU. It's just the greatest story ever told. But he doesn't stop there. He talks about the good, the bad, and the ugly. And it is so important that that narrative come out. And I'm so glad that Lee brought that up. But that's one of the things I would like to say about it. Harry used to say, and Peter Oldie is here and he's heard this many times, the theory was that if you give the rank and file all of the information, 99 times out of 100, they'll make the right decision. I don't know if it's 99 out of 100, but I will say this. Most of the time when you give them the information, they'll do the right thing. That's how democracy is. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. But it's very important. And I think that what we need to understand is that there's something that Paul Robeson talked about, and that is each generation is going to have to step up to the plate and do their part to advance the struggle. And when we talk about the ILWU, this is no criticism of the historian because it's so important. We don't just talk about what happened in 1935 when Mussolini invaded Ethiopia and there was a community embargo that came onto the waterfront to stop the shipment of metals to Mussolini in Italy. Or in 1935, after Japan had invaded Manchuria and longshore workers did not cross a community blockade because they were protesting sending scrap iron to Japan before we got involved with the war. These actions on the part of the ILWU rank and file continues to this day. But we've got Trumpsters in our union today. Let's call it like it is. We do. And we shouldn't be surprised because we don't have a workers' party in this country. And people seem to think that it's between Biden and Trump. What kind of choice is that with the working class? So I'm going to let it go, but I'm glad you brought that up, Lee, because there's always been pushback against progressive action on the part of the ILWU. That's just a microcosm of the United States. Thank you, Lee, for bringing that up.
So if I could just say two quick things about what Leith and Clarence talked about. So during World War II, a huge boom in work. After World War II, decline in work. And so although there was racism in the union, undeniably, there was less work, right? And so when they voted to keep hundreds of more workers in their local, they were voting to work less, which means earn less, right? And so that was not an insignificant, right? Because you pay by the hour, you're working fewer hours if there's more workers who are dispatching, right? And so that's actually very important that non-LW members might not appreciate. Second thing is the irony. We are sort of happy to praise, but as we talked about, what benefited the union? The war in Korea resulted in more work, right? And so although the LW, including Bridges, actually were very anti-Korea, he actually was imprisoned, right, for speaking out against the U.S. involvement in the Korean War. It actually benefited West Coast workers in the ports because that's where all the war effort and the cargo was going to for the U.S. war in Korea, right? And so that's a painful, and that's the case today too, right? Where many of us, as we've talked about, benefit from the war economy, right?
Yes.
And so that starts in World War II and continues to this day, right? Where a lot of people who are verbally anti are actually loading ships, right? And that goes back before this time too. And I'm just saying that's we have to put that clear, right? A lot of the work that Americans are doing are actually raining down bombs, right? In other parts of the world, right? So out of these often taking a principled stand, and sometimes we make compromises. I do too. And so,
in the belly of the beast. Don't be shy.
Thank you. You kind of already touched on it, but I like the quote from Leo Robinson, permanent interest, not permanent friend. And kind of like what you're saying with the choices of our two presidents this upcoming election, I'm sure we'll endorse Biden. But there is a couple other people running and stuff, not for a Labor Party, right? But I've been getting involved a little bit in political stuff, and we support these people. We buy tables at their little fundraisers and stuff. And when do we hold them accountable? And when do we, if they're not supporting us, when do we move toward the Labor Party? And why haven't we yet?
I'd like to address that.
Yes.
That's a great question. And let me just say that just a couple of days ago, I received I'm active in a group called Labor for Palestine. and I received a text message asking, would I support a rally by, I think it was the NEA and another union, and this is what they were calling for. They're going to revoke their endorsement of Biden if he does not immediately call for a ceasefire. And I said, yeah, I can sign on to that. Because that speaks to your point. You know, the working class has an agenda. And I don't care if you are a Trumpster in the union movement, or a lefty, or a Democrat, it does not matter. Social Security is something that you believe in and support. National living wage is something that you believe in and support. Even on the question of the military, of the expenditures for the military. There are a number of people who are on the right, working class, who have issues with money going to Israel and Ukraine. Because they see the necessity for those dollars to be spent here at home. We don't have national health care. Our children should be able to go to the University of Washington, University of California, free for our tax dollars. When I went to San Francisco State in 1970, I paid, I think, $48 a semester. It's now $35,000 a year. Workers understand what's in their interest, and Leo always said that there are certain things that all workers want and desire, no matter what their political leanings are. And that's how we should begin. We need to have debates with the Trumpsters. If they want to come out and say who they are in the meetings, because they know they can't bring the politics in there, because they couldn't have the benefits of the contract that we have. But at the same time, too, we need to be Donald Trump is anti-union. Well, so is Biden, for that matter. But we need to be able to call that out. And that's the reason why we organized the Million Worker March in 2004. We need to have a workers' party. You got to first start with an agenda to get workers mobilized around. So I hope I've answered your question. But yeah, people are going to vote for Biden. I'm certain of that. But the reality is, why should you just merely vote for him without making any demands? And today, there's actions going on all across the country. The big march in Washington, D.C. today. Just a few days ago, they were blocking freeways and bridges in New York City. Today, the Port of Oakland is shut down. I mean, this reminds me of 1968. We're heading into the Democratic Convention. Biden is in trouble because young people that are not part of my generation, who don't know anything about the benefits of affirmative action, federal expenditures for what they call model cities, all of the progressive things that took place following what you would call the Great Society programs. Now they want to end affirmative action and all other diversity and all this other kind of stuff. And all young people see is austerity. They go to college, they can't find jobs. They got to work for Uber, Lyft, and Amazon. And then you kill 21,000 Palestinians and counting. And you think that we don't pay attention to this? This is genocide. And so people understand this, and we need to be connecting the dots. So we're in a very pivotal moment right now in our history. And labor, we'll close out with this. Have you noticed how the right wing was really thrown off and was really off? They were out of kilter with the UAW recent victory. When you saw black and white workers walking the picket line, hand in hand. Trump was trying to trump that by having a rally at a non-union facility and telling the UAW, you should be striking against the Chinese. That's not the ruling class. It didn't work. But that's the only solution. We have to begin to think very strategically. And I like that idea. If you don't we're gonna revoke our endorsement of you. That's what they understand. Thank you. Yeah.
You know, it's very critical on Clarence kind of put out a lot of things out there. I'm also president of the Seattle chapter of the A. Philip Randolph. If you know about A. Philip Randolph, he organized a march on Washington 1963, him and Byron Rustin with Dr. King for that famous speech, I Have a Dream. But in a lot of times people want to address Dr. King, they just talk about the dream. He was not a dreamer, he was a radical person. He was militant and he was a revolutionary, as you said, because they don't kill dreamers, they kill revolutionaries, right? And that's the reality. But, you know, at that point that you, question that you asked, one of the things, and I want to tie it in because when, you know, Randolph organized, previous from the 1963 march, he was trying to organize a march in 1941 and so on, right? And one of the things that when he addressed, before he tried to do the march, he addressed the president of the United States. And the president responded to him like, yeah, I know this is a problem, but you have to make me do something about it. And that's what we have to do with each and every politician. We got to force them to do what they need to do that's going to benefit the people of this country, right? So we got to do action. In 2004, and that's why Clarence wrote the book, The Minneapolis March. In 2004, we organized in our own name. We brought people together from all over. We come together to address the issue that was facing this country. Healthcare, education, housing. I mean, all the basic needs that every human being should have the right for, right? And this is going to continue. And that's why I think we need another Minneapolis March. We need to go down to the Lincoln Memorial, mobilize people, workers, community leaders, and no politician, because when Randolph did it, there was no politician involved. No politician spoke on that stage. When the Minneapolis March did it, no politician spoke on that stage. The thing is, Dr. King work, Randolph work is not done yet. We have to continue the dream. We have to continue to mobilize, put the pressure, and call on those politicians. If you're not going to do what you're supposed to do, you're not going to make it, you know. And we have to have a demand, because that's one thing that anytime a politician gets in office, everybody gets something except the working class or the people. We don't get the basic thing that we need. You know, they're taking away we haven't got the voting rights passed. We haven't got, you know, we're taking money and spending it to war. But education, why are we not spending money on education? People go to, like Clarence mentioned, you go to college, you spend so much money, get so high debt that you can't pay. But and then when you ask to fund these tuition for the students, we don't got money for that, but we got money to buy bombs, to bomb other people in other countries, destroy all infrastructure in another country, but we can't get homeless people home to live. I mean, you got to look at what's going on, you know. So the big issue is that we have to mobilize and have a demand. We cannot make any politician get in office without a demand coming from the people and the labor movement, okay? So this is one of the things that we got to focus on. We got to have a demand. Don't just vote. Vote with a demand. Thank you.